Welcome to the Last Minute Fantasy Scramble. We are here to answer your questions. Now it's week 16. I don't know about you, but for me, that means championship week, and we're gonna need help big time. So we are here to help you however you can. I'm Kevin K. Mac McCartney. Alongside me today, Bobby Digital Janis. Us two happen to be competing in the championship of our league for the third year in a row. So we know a little bit of what we're talking about since we've made it 3 times in a row, ready to face off against each other. Hopefully, Bobby will be on air to spoil all of his secrets, so I could use it as a competitive advantage to beat him this week. That being said, we had football last night and unexpected results. Bobby, what do you think about that game last night and what it means for as far as fantasy implications go?
Well, first of all, one of my favorite things about the NFL is like it's any given Sunday, and we saw that
Or
on
Monday.
Sunday with the Rams beating the Jets beating the Rams, excuse me. And last night was just the same exact thing. Nobody thought, even we all thought here it was going to be an ugly one. It was going to be a blowout. But we'll start with the fantasy implications. For those of you that stream Big Ben, I'm sorry. For those of you that had Eric Ebron, we're counting on Juju, who only was 3 for 15. Very disappointing. The only one that produced as expected is Deontay Johnson. He kind of got his drops beside him, 8 for 59 and a touchdown. So, honestly, we'll check out the status on Ebron. He really took a bad hit, and he was carted off. And, so you got to keep tabs on him. But they got a tougher matchup against the Colts, and whether Connor plays or not, I'm avoiding everybody here except for Deontay. I think he's the only one you can trust, honestly. Benny Snell did have a nice game, 18 for 84 and 1. He did look very good. He has a few nice runs when Pittsburgh did decide to finally run the ball. And so, if you're desperate for running backs, you could pick him up because assuming Connor's out, and he's going to at least get some volume, but it is a tough matchup. But yeah, I think there's an injury to Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think he's healthy. That's the only thing I can see. I think that Dallas game when his knee got nicked up, or maybe his elbow's bothering him again. So I definitely not trusting anybody outside of Deontay Johnson here. And as for the Bengals, I don't know if some people were starting Boyd or Higgins. Boyd left that game early. Higgins only was 3 for 31, and that was all in the first half. The big fantasy star for the Bengals was Gio Bernard, 25 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown. And then he had the receiving touchdown, 14-yarder. If there is one thing we know that he's going to see the volume in this backfield, I still don't know if I trust him in a fantasy championship. If you did make the championship, most likely you have better running backs than him. But if you need to start him, it is a decent matchup against Houston, so you could make the case for it. But other than that, it wasn't really that good of a fantasy game. Especially if you were counting on some Steelers there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to ask you those questions too, because Gio Bernard, he has had a lousy few weeks to say the least. But yeah, he came back with a big game against one of the top defenses in the NFL. And if you are running low on options, if you had maybe a CEH or Ezekiel Elliott who are not quite sure of what's going to be happening for them next week, if they are out, would you feel comfortable starting a Gio Bernard in that place?
I wouldn't necessarily say comfortable, but I think I think would have to do it. I would think you have to consider it for sure, and you see the upside there. So yeah, I think so.
All right, so we are already getting questions coming in. This one comes from Greg. Are you ready for this?
Yep.
All right, you got your pen and paper ready.
Yeah, I got it all set.
All right, so I'm going to list some players. We are picking 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 flex PPR. All right.
2 wide receivers, 2 running back, and 1 flex. All right, let's hear it.
2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 flex.
1 running back. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. All right, so our options are Dobbins, McKissick, Carson, Emmanuel Sanders, Godwin, or Lockett.
Okay.
Again,
I have Dobbins, McKissick, Carson, Emmanuel Sanders, Chris Godwin, and Tyler Lockett.
That's correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still gonna for my running back. I'm still gonna take Chris Carson there. I just think he's still seeing good volume with Seattle. For my 2 wide receivers, I'm definitely gonna start Chris Godwin, and I am going to start Tyler Lockett. I know he's been struggling, but I trust him a little more than Manny Sanders. Breeze still, I think, has to accumulate. He's got to shake off some rust, I think. And then for my flex, I'm going to go with J.K. Dobbins here. I do like his matchup against the Giants this week, and he's the lead back in Baltimore. Keep an eye on Antonio Gibson's status. If he misses, I think you could start J.D. McKissick. In a PPR, I think McKissick would be your safer option if you're just looking for like a safe, secure amount of points, someone that's not going to win you or lose you the week. And I think Dobbins is the higher risk, but the higher upside play there between those two in the flex.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so I did want to talk about waivers a little bit. So a lot of injuries open up possibilities for waivers coming in. I want to start at the running back position. Hugely detrimental for this championship game. What are some of the guys that you're looking at this week on the waiver wire?
Yeah, I mean, these are all guys that I'm looking at that are less than 50% owned on ESPN. Obviously, if Le'Veon Bell is available, I would definitely grab him, seeing as CEH is going to be out, and he seems like the guy in that backfield as of right now, if anything, even though they throw the ball so much in Kansas City. I'm looking at Darrell Henderson. Cam Akers with the high ankle sprain ruled out. So maybe you did have Akers, maybe you had CEH, or maybe you have Zeke and you're not sure.
Yeah, and you got to remember that earlier in the season when Cam Akers was out, Henderson was running the ball, and he was doing a good job of it also.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mentioned it in the previous podcast back when Henderson was doing his thing that PFF had him rated as a top 5 running back according to Pro Football Focus. Through those those weeks that he was doing it, and he even had a game. I think it was against the Bills. Their game he had a 27 carry game. So, Darrell Henderson definitely is a guy to consider there. Obviously, I would say definitely if Tony Pollard's available or Jeff Wilson, add those guys as well. Pollard obviously depending on Zeke's status, and Wilson now that Mostert's out. And then really after that, obviously you can look at. I'm not excited about it, but Ito Smith, Falcons came out and said Ito Smith's our quote-unquote lead runner, whatever that means. But, I mean, the Falcons just can't run the ball at all, and I don't think there's much upside there. But if you need a body, Ito Smith could do you well. And Frank Gore, same thing. 23 carries. Adam Gase has an obsession with him. If anything, he's going to get guaranteed volume. So those, I think, are extremely desperation options if you're just, need a body. Like, if you're just desperate for a body there.
Yeah, and a few other names that are coming out mostly with injuries too. Out of Miami Dolphins, Salvon Ahmed, he had a great game. Set crazy rushing numbers, that whole team against the Patriots. And another one that I'm looking into is Benny Snell. Not sure what the situation is with James Conner, but if you're gonna have a lead back set aside from injuries, then that does create opportunity, especially if you're looking thin at the running back position.
Definitely. I would it depends on the status of Gaskin, but if Gaskin's out again, I think Ahmed is a top 20 play. He's a great play, so that's a great call there. Then Benny Snell as well. And then the only other situation that's there, James Robinson, he hurt his ankle and he didn't return to that game. So we're not sure what his status is. They have Devine Azigbo and Dare Agumbawale. I don't know how they're going to divvy up carries, but I'm sorry.
Nailed the pronunciation.
Sweet. But I don't know how they're going to split up carries, but the big concern there is the matchup. I mean, the Bears are just such a stout run defense. Obviously, Dalvin Cook still did his thing, but that's Dalvin Cook, I think, more so than the Bears run defense. So that's something I would definitely be leery of there.
All right, and we got a question coming in from Trayvon. Amari Cooper, Cooper Kupp, or T.Y. Hilton, half PPR league? Or does he pick up Sanders and play him over them?
I'm gonna go with Cooper Kupp there, out of those options. I think Cooper Kupp's still a big part of that offense.
Amari Cooper, they do have a nice matchup this week.
Nice matchup against Seattle. Amari Cooper, I mean, just hard to trust with Andy Dalton now. He had a bum game last week, although still not a bad option. And then I'm kind of fading T.Y. Hilton this week against Pittsburgh.
All right. So now let's take a look at the wide receiver options that we have for this week on the waiver wire. Some big names or some names came out that you're starting to see having more chemistry with their quarterback, like you're seeing with the emergence of Jalen Hurts. Now you see Greg Ward coming out, and you're definitely seeing some chemistry between those two guys. Along with, what do you think about him, and what other waiver wire receivers are you looking at specifically for this week?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as high on Ward because he only had 5 targets and he only had 15 yards. He just happened to have 2 touchdowns, so that might have inflated his stats. The Eagles with Hurts now, he's giving them a great kickstart, of course, but they're spreading the ball around really well. I mean, they're throwing passes to Jeffrey, Jalen Rieger, Zach Ertz, and both Ertz and Goddard are getting looks as well. So not as high on Ward as I would be on Rashard Higgins, who actually, since he's been since I think since the Tennessee game, he's been a top 15 wide receiver, and he's seeing consistent targets in that offense. They have a great matchup against the Jets this week. The other guy I'm looking at, again, is Russell Gage. If Julio Jones is out again this week, I think Gage is definitely a solid flex. He had a really nice game this past week, and the Falcons are expected to throw a lot in this game to keep up with Kansas City, who is going to put up points.
Yeah, and depending on whatever's going on with Julio Jones, I feel that that's a weekly occurrence now at this
Yeah.
point. Is his
Yep.
hamstring gonna hold? Is his hamstring gonna hold out throughout the week? And it's anybody's guess, really, at this point. It's a flip of a coin. But if he's healthy, just he's definitely going to be one of your top guys. But if not, Russell Gage is a great plug-and-play option. So besides that, were there any other guys that you were taking a look at, maybe in some of the deeper leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to consider Chad Hansen again from Houston. He's been producing double-digit fantasy points since Fuller's been out. He's played the most snaps of any Texans wide receiver. Now, part of that was because Cooks missed with an injury the last 2 games, but he definitely is developing some sort of chemistry with Deshaun Watson, and they do have a nice matchup against the Bengals this week. So again, if you're kind of looking for a deeper league, I think you could consider Hansen, especially how much the Texans are throwing the ball.
All right, so we got a couple of defense questions coming in. I'm going to start with one from Alex, who asks, Bucks or Steelers defense this week?
Yeah, I'm going to take Pittsburgh there.
All right. And another one from Trayvon, Washington defense or Carolina defense?
I think if Haskins is the starter, you go with Carolina. And if it's Alex Smith, I would take Washington.
All right, there you go. All right, so let's move on to the quarterback position. Obviously, the big name, and he was your breakout player of the week this last week, and he definitely broke out in every sense of the term, and that is Jalen Hurts. Now, this guy he came out with a bang. He had a tremendous fantasy week. What are your thoughts on him, as well as any of the other quarterbacks worth looking streaming this week?
Yeah, I mean, I said it on Sunday. The fact that he got 18 carries against New Orleans the previous week, and just the eye test, seeing how much of a spark he's brought to this offense and the confidence that he plays with, and then seeing as how his opponent against Arizona, who Murray's getting healthy and they're going to put up points, it looked like it was going to be a great day for him, and it turned out to be. And I think Jalen Hurts is firmly a top 10 QB option this week in a great matchup against Dallas. And he comes with a safe floor because he's averaging double-digit carries. So definitely have to feel confident with Hurts there. And then some other options that are potentially available. I think a big one is Baker Mayfield. He's at home against the Jets. Baker Mayfield, I've watched both Cleveland games the last 2 weeks, and then even before against Tennessee. I mean, he looks really confident out there. He really does. He's looked like he's really taking command of this offense. Kevin Stefanski is an awesome coach, and he's really designed this offense really well coming over from Minnesota. And they're allowing Baker to do what he does best, working off of play action, throwing on the run, and he's made some incredible throws. And obviously, we like that matchup against the Jets, who don't have a very good pass defense. So I like Baker Mayfield as the streamer of the week here.
All right. Yeah, Baker has definitely made some improvements this year, and he is turning into a very solid streamable option. And with this matchup, you just got to hope that the Cleveland Browns don't brown and that they can pull off a win. And I think they're going to do it big, but you just got to be careful not to fall into that trap Like you saw with the Rams, what they did last week, they just completely overlooked the Jets. Just a prime example of a trap game, looking ahead to a divisional matchup, and they just fell apart. And the Jets fell apart too because as bad as they aren't even good enough to lose, right?
Yeah, really.
And
I know.
yeah, it's funny. But that being said, I did want to stop for a moment, and we're talking about this Philadelphia Eagles situation. And Jalen Hurts, I feel, completely changes the offense. And I'm curious what you think that means going forward from a fantasy perspective, not just for Hurts, but for the running game and the receivers.
Well, I mean, I think it definitely boosts the value of Miles Sanders. A lot of people say that when you have a running quarterback, it curbs like the upside for the running backs, which can be true. But in this situation, it's not true because under Carson Wentz, the offense was so bad that it hurt Miles Sanders and the whole the whole offense. They weren't even moving the ball. With Jalen Hurts now running that read option, that is going to really take some defense's attention away. And we saw Miles Sanders rip along one against the Saints 2 weeks ago. So I think it definitely helps Miles Sanders' value. And another key thing for Sanders is that he saw over 80% of the snaps this past week, and that's the first time he's had that all season long. We didn't even see Jordan Howard. So, and obviously a great matchup against Dallas. So it definitely, I think, boosts the value of Miles Sanders considering where it's been with Carson Wentz at under center before Hurts took over. And as for the rest of the pass catchers, I think it hurts Dallas Goedert because he was really a target hog under Carson Wentz. But now that Jeffrey's back, now that Ertz is back, and now that Jalen Hurts is really spreading the ball around. No receiver had more than seven. No pass catcher had more than 7 targets in that game. I mean, you could see it. They were going to. I was watching that game. They were going to Jeffrey a lot. They went to Rieger down for an end zone fade a few times. Greg Ward had 2 touchdowns. Goddard had 4 receptions. So I think it hurts the value. And now Deshaun Jackson might be coming back too. So I think it hurts the value for the Eagles pass catchers because it kind of takes away a target hog, so to speak. And the target hogs in fantasy is what's valuable for wide receivers.
It hurts the offense. I see what you did there, or the receivers. All
Yeah.
right. John
Not the
asks,
team, though. Definitely not the
yeah,
team.
definitely not the team. And definitely not Hurts. He is on fire. And you know what? We're going to start with this question. John asks, Hurts or Trubisky?
Yeah, I'm going to take Jalen Hurts there. I do like Trubisky a lot this week, though.
All right. John also asks another defense question. We have Washington D or Dallas D?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Washington football team defense.
All right. And let's round out this trifecta of questions. Asks Drake or Bell?
That's actually a really good one, but I'm gonna take Le'Veon Bell there. I think the game script's gonna be good for him. He's selling the majority of the snaps, and I think he's due for a few receptions as well, and he's playing in the better offense.
Yeah, for sure. And he is still available in a lot of leagues. He's only owned
Definitely.
in just over 50% of leagues. So if you could grab him, knowing his talent with that team and not having to worry about a split backfield, you saw what he did ever since CEH left the game. And that guy can ball. We know it. We've seen it for years now. And just putting him in that offense against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, I'm expecting a huge game out of Le'Veon Bell. That being said, I want to move over and talk some tight ends. So what tight ends are you looking at this week? Anybody to stream? Anyone to pick up?
It's honestly a crapshoot with tight ends with the available options. Now you're just hoping for a tight end, and a touchdown, and touchdowns are almost impossible to really predict. But I'm gonna stick by. You might call me crazy here, but I'm gonna stick by Cole Kmet. I know that was Bud's pick for breakout, and he only had 2 for 12. But he was one of only 3 tight ends that saw 100% of the snaps last week. And that's very rare for a tight end. And then the previous 2 games before that, he saw 7 targets in each of the last 2. And they do have a great matchup against Jacksonville. So I think if you're desperate, I'd hold on to Kmet or pick him up. The other guy I'm looking at is Zach Ertz. I know I mentioned that, that might hurt the Eagles receiving or the pass catching core for the Eagles with the play of Jalen Hurts now. But Zach Ertz did see 7 targets, and they do have a good matchup. So when we're talking about tight ends, we're talking about the tight end landscape. I think Zach Ertz is a reasonable streaming option for you. And then the other one I would look at is Dan Arnold from Arizona. He had 3 for 54 last week. He's capable of catching, it seems like those big plays. I mean, a few weeks ago against the Rams, he had 2 for 61 and 2. So if you're looking for maybe a high upside tight end play, a guy that is in a good offense with Kyler Murray getting healthy, Dan Arnold might be another guy you could stream. Hope he gets maybe a long gain for a touchdown. But again, it's tough when it comes to the tight end landscape.
All right. And lastly, let's talk about defenses. I know we already had a few questions about that. What defense are you looking to stream this week? I know a lot of people, myself included, have been stashing defenses for this particular game to make sure you have someone ready for the playoffs. Me personally, I've been holding on to Cleveland defense the whole second half of the season just to make sure I'm ready for this last stretch of games, and especially for this matchup against the Jets. Obviously, for the most part, you can say you're safe to play any play against the Jets. But besides Cleveland's defense, who else are you looking into this week?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Dolphins defense probably isn't available in your league, but if they are, I would definitely pick them up and start them. They are just playing outstanding defense. The Raiders have not looked very good. They got Marcus Mariota going under center. They even scored 7 fantasy points against Kansas City. So I think they're at this point matchup proof. The other defense I actually kind of do like this week, going a little more under the radar here because I know you might have a lot of options, is I do kind of like the Cardinals defense this week if you're desperate, because 49ers are starting C.J. Beathard, who over Nick Mullins, who maybe isn't necessarily that much of a downgrade, but I would definitely still, if you're desperate, consider the Cardinals at home against the 49ers, who are not really have much to play for. And then I think you could start Kansas City at home against Atlanta if you're desperate as well. This Matt Ryan, except for last week, has been struggling, and Julio Jones may not play again. And Kansas City, this is their last home game of the year. This probably is their last game before the playoffs, assuming if they win, they lock it up. They might just want to go hard and take care of business and try to lock things up for themselves. So that could be another option for you if you're looking deep.
All right, so we do have some questions coming in. Let's start with Jake, who asks Bell or Carson.
I'm still going to go with Chris Carson there.
All right, and he is leaning Carson, so Jake, stick with it. All right, this next question comes from Branson, who asks Lamar or Kyler.
Ooh, that's a really good one. I'm going to take Kyler Murray. I think the matchup's a little better. The Giants haven't been a pushover defense, and Murray and Jackson have that similar rushing potential. Murray, finally, to me, at least looks healthy again. He had that shoulder issue, and that was seriously, I think, putting a dent in his fantasy production. But now I think he looks very healthy, and he's ready to go. I think he's going to start putting up that production like he was the first half of the season and as he did last week. Both great options. You're in good shape if you have those two as your options, but I'll lean Murray here.
All right. So this next one, Alex asks, stay with Josh Allen or start Breeze?
Yeah, you have to stick with Josh Allen at this point. You can't bench him.
And you got to know that the Patriots are going to be without Stephon Gilmore. You can't totally look at Josh Allen's last performance against the New England Patriots. He has made improvements since that time in the year. He has been on fire lately, and as good as he played last time, I know I'm saying this slightly biased because I'm a huge Josh Allen owner, and there are 4 Josh Allens dancing all over the stream right now, even from a Dolphins fan. I'm big on Josh Allen, and I'm still expecting maybe not the best week out of him, but still, he's going to be top tier, top 5 at least, out of quarterback performance this week, in my humble opinion. So this next question comes from Brad, who asks Gordon, Wilson Jr., Ahmed or Gaskin, whoever, if Gaskin plays.
So
Dolphins running back, pick 2.
Okay. Oh, pick 2.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just Gordon, Ahmed, Gaskin, and who was the other one?
Wilson Jr.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to tell you right now. If Myles Gaskin is out, and they play Saturday, but luckily, so if Myles Gaskin is out, I would start Ahmed as 1. excuse me, and Melvin Gordon is too. But if Gaskin plays, I don't know if he's going to come back to a full feature workload. I think Ahmed has played really well, and he might garner a little bit more of the touches, especially Gaskin coming
RBBC,
off. What's that?
RBBC, gonna get that
I don't know
committee.
about our maybe, but I think too Gaskin coming off COVID. Maybe he's eased into the things. So I would avoid that situation if Gaskin's healthy, and I would go with Jeff Wilson there. But again, if Gaskin's out for this game, I'm going Ahmed and Gordon.
All right, so you hear that here. All right, so we've got a lot of questions. Every week we like to do a segment where we take a look at some of the players who are getting a lot of questions. Normally we break it down division by division, but this is championship time. This is where the money is on the line, and we are going to go with some of the big names that are floating around, and people are asking, do I start this hot guy over someone who has been a consistent stud, a consistent performer for me? And we are going to start at the quarterback position with one of the big names of the week, Jalen Hurts. And we're going to ask for this week specifically whether you like Jalen Hurts over this other player. So, Bobby, for week 16 championship time, would you rather have Jalen Hurts or Justin Herbert?
That's a really close one, but I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts confidently here. The only issue I have with Justin Herbert isn't Justin Herbert himself; it's the coaching staff. And I'm a Justin Herbert owner in a league myself, and there's been times where they just like run the ball up the middle with Josh Kelly on first and second down and just play ridiculously conservative, and they don't let him rip. Let him throw it, and that's the thing that worries me about Herbert a little bit. Obviously, you're still starting him in most leagues. But when it comes to Herbert or Hurts, I'll take Hurts slightly over Justin Herbert.
Yeah, with Hurts just coming out of the woodwork these last couple of weeks, it's very possible that you could have one of those top quarterbacks and have Hurts as well, which makes you wonder one of these questions. So now I present this one to you. Would you rather have for week 16 Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson?
That's a really good one as well. I'm going to take Lamar Jackson there.
All right. And last but not least, I've seen this one a ton of times, especially because of the defensive matchup that I just talked about. But would you rather have for week 16 Jalen Hurts or Josh Allen?
Yeah, I knew this one was coming when we were going to do Jalen Hurts. But I'm just going to honestly say, you can't sit Josh Allen. You have to start him. I look at it this way. Like, you can't, like, if you're, a lot of times if you're deciding between an up-and-coming, like, hot player off the waiver wire, like, for example, Jalen Hurts, or another proven stud so far this year, like you would feel worse if like you benched Josh Allen and he had a better game than Hurts and it might have cost you than if you started Josh Allen and Hurts ended up having a better game. Like, I think you'd feel better, or you would feel worse if you had benched, your stud, and he would have won you the week. So you got to go down with the guys that get you there in most situations. So I'll take Josh Allen over Jalen Hurts this week.
All right. Trayvon asks, do we still trust Steelers defense? They have been horrible lately.
I mean, I wouldn't say horrible, but definitely something's not right with that team. And like I said, I think it has something to do with Ben being injured. But no, I'm still gonna roll out the Steelers defense this week, unless there's some good options. But I think they're still definitely a top 10 play.
Yeah, just Juju needs to stop doing his TikTok dances on the
really.
logos.
I know, man.
Every game he's doing that, they're losing, and he got blasted last game. Even see the Bengals social media poking fun of it and knocking out the TikTok star.
I mean, honestly, like Juju's first year, I think it was his rookie year or the year he really came on the scene in 2018. I think it was like the last year Antonio Brown was there. He was a fantasy, like he not only fantasy stud, but in real life, like he was balling out. And then since Brown left and he's been the number one the last 2 years, he hasn't really been very good. He hasn't really stepped up to the plate, honestly. And so, for him to be doing all that stuff, especially now they're on a losing skid, I mean, I would think Mike Tomlin isn't too happy about that. It definitely, I think I read a report, it definitely gave the Bills motivation for that. And then it definitely gave the Bengals motivation too. You saw that hit Von Bell laid on him. He blew him up. Yeah. It was a clean hit. It wasn't a dirty hit, but he blew up Juju.
That's a game-changing hit right there. Like
Yeah,
you
that was a
get one of
fumble.
those
It ended
guys.
up being a
Like
fumble.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think that you're right. It has that. I think that that's not the best idea to do that. But
Hey, it's all fun and games when you're winning, but when you're losing, it's not a good look.
yeah,
All right, we have another question from Branson who asks Robbie Anderson or Julio Jones if he's available.
I mean, if Julio Jones is available, you start him. You can't overthink that.
Yeah, you
And
just
I'm
gotta
not a
hope
big.
his
I've been saying
hamstring
it
doesn't
all
give
year.
up
Like,
halfway through the game.
yeah, but you still have to start Julio Jones. Like, you have to take that risk. Like, you have to be willing to take that chance. In my opinion, that's what I'm doing. I don't care. I mean, you got to take the chance. But I've been saying it all year on the podcast. Like, I'm not a fan of Carolina. I don't like they recently fired their GM, by the way, but I don't like the way the team's constructed. I'm not a fan of Teddy Bridgewater in terms of I think he's a solid average quarterback that he's not going to win you a week, but he won't lose you either. I'm not a fan of what they're doing. I'm not a big fan of Matt Rule either. And Robbie Anderson got off to a hot start, but his production has been taking a hit lately. And now DJ Moore again seems to be emerging. So yeah, that's pretty simple though. If Julio plays, I would start him over Robbie Anderson.
All right. And now we already talked about Jalen Hurts in the quarterback position. Another big name coming up this week, looking over at the running back position, is Jeff Wilson Jr. Now, Bobby, you mentioned it earlier in the year how big of a difference it makes to be that starting running back in San Francisco. As long as you don't get injured halfway through the game, those starting running backs in San Francisco put up big numbers. That being said, for Week 16, would you rather have Jeff Wilson Jr. or Darrell Henderson?
I think that's a close one. For me personally, I would still rather have Jeff Wilson. Because I think with Mostert out, Kyle Shanahan did come out and say um, last week that they're going to roll with Mostert and Wilson. And whenever Wilson has been healthy, he seems to be that next man up on the depth chart. We saw what he did against the Patriots that game, and I think it was week 6 or 7 before he went down. And then based on how they're using him behind Mostert, and he definitely is clearly that second string guy. There's always a risk with Kyle Shanahan doing Shanahanigans. But I mean, Tevin Coleman has averaged like 1 yard per, I think it was like 1.1 yards per carry. He looks like he might be injured or washed up. And Shanahan did come out and say Jerick McKinnon had tired legs. We used him too much, and he's been only playing on special teams. So yeah, there's still a chance he could pull Shanahanigans. But I think between him and Henderson, I think you have to go with Wilson. But it's close. But I think Wilson there.
All right. This next one for Week 16, would you rather have Jeff Wilson Jr. or Wayne Gallman?
That one's easy for me. It's Jeff Wilson Jr. Devontae Freeman coming back. They're playing the Ravens. For some reason, they insist on using Alfred Morris on 50% of the snaps. Deion Lewis is seeing all the passing down work. I think Gallman's run is over.
All right. And last but not least, would you rather have Jeff Wilson Jr. or Le'Veon Bell?
Yeah, this time I'm going to take Bell, like for the reasons we talked about earlier about playing in that offense and potential game script.
All right. We have a question from Zach. I know you answered this one earlier, but just to give your reasoning again, who would you rather have, Herbert or Hurts?
Yeah, I'm going with Jalen Hurts there.
All right. And can you explain your reasoning for that?
Oh, yeah. Because it's not Justin Herbert himself. It's when you're comparing guys that are this close, you have to look at certain factors, and the deal breaker on Herbert for me is the coaching staff. There's times where they just get ultra conservative. Justin Herbert in the Thursday night game, he in the fourth quarter he only had one pass attempt. I mean, the coaching is awful in LA. They go way too conservative when they don't need to, and that worries me about Herbert slightly. Again, both good options, but that gives me the edge. Hurts over Herbert. Plus, Hurts' matchup is a little bit better, even though Denver isn't a bad matchup either. Denver's a great matchup as well. But I'll take Hurts.
All right. We talked quarterback with Jalen Hurts. We talked running back with Jeff Wilson Jr. Now let's look at the wide receiver position. With the absence of Deebo Samuel, has cemented himself as a top-tier wide receiver, and that is Brandon Ayuk. And now, Bobby, I want you to answer this question. For Week 16, would you rather have Brandon Ayuk or Robert Woods?
I mean, you have to. I think out of those two, you have to play Robert Woods. But both are great options, so hopefully you don't have to choose between those two.
All right, we'll choose between these two: Brandon Ayuk or Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ayuk there. The thing is with Brandon Ayuk, since he's been back in Week 13, he's been a top 5 fantasy receiver in points. Like if you look at that, I looked at that earlier today. He's been the fifth best fantasy wide receiver at that span, and in every game that he's been healthy since Week 6, in each game that he's played because he's missed some time, he hasn't scored fewer than 17 PPR fantasy points. Now with Debo Samuel out, especially, you'd think that they're going to have to throw to keep up with the Cardinals. Um, Kyle Shanahan even said, like, they invested a first round pick in him. He said, we're going to find ways to scheme him the ball. I trust Kyle Shanahan in terms of scheming guys open, and that's what he's been doing. So whether it's Mullins or whether it's Beathard behind center for the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk's going to get his work. As for Terry McLaurin, I obviously he's a great talent, and obviously he's a part of their offense, but there's just games sometimes where their quarterback situation with Haskins might be iffy. And there's the last 3 games he's just kind of disappeared. And I think as well he hasn't really found the end zone much. So I think Ayuk has a higher touchdown upside. Again, both good players, but I will slightly side with Ayuk in this case.
All right, and last for the wide receiver, Brandon Ayuk or Jarvis Landry.
That's another really good one, but I'm still gonna take Brandon Ayuk there for above said reasons. But Landry's also a great option. But again, this could be a situation where the risk with Landry is, let's say that the Jets or the Browns, like we expect, would jump out to a big lead. They're going to just pound the ball with Chubb and Hunt. They do that anyway. So that's the only little bit of downside with Landry. Both great options. I'll side with Ayuk there.
All right, and I want to backtrack a little bit. We were talking about Terry McLaurin and that Washington football team offense. How much of a difference do you think it makes with whatever quarterback is going to be starting that offense, not just for McLaurin, but for the entire team and the different guys there?
Well, I mean, I personally thought everyone's going to take a hit, but I mean, Logan Thomas had 15 targets and 13 receptions for 100 yards under Haskins, and J.D. McKissick had a really nice game too. I still think Alex Smith is better for the offense. I do. But I don't think it's that much of an upgrade as you'd think. So I think you still have to rely on those guys that you normally would. But I think it's an upgrade nonetheless with Alex Smith.
All right. And if Antonio Gibson does indeed miss this game, what do you think that means for J.D. McKissick, and does that make a difference in the quarterback situation?
I don't think it makes a difference in the quarterback situation. And I think I mentioned it earlier when answering a question. It definitely makes J.D. McKissick, I would say, a solid running back 2 in PPR leagues because of the pass volume he sees. So yeah, I think that. I mean, Alex Smith checks down a lot too, but so did Dwayne Haskins last game. So I think you still can feel confident J.D. McKissick as a not very high upside, but as a safe PPR running back, low end running back 2 or flex if Gibson's out.
All right. Now, Zach's got another question. Pick 2, full PPR. We're going Claypool, Mike Williams, or Hardman.
Well, you got to check the status of Mike Williams. But if Mike Williams is gonna be healthy, I'm gonna take Mike Williams over the other two because normally I'd say Claypool, but A, the Steelers have a tougher matchup against the Colts, and B, I'm picking 2. I'm sorry. So yeah, I'm gonna take Claypool and Big Mike.
All right. So we got Claypool and we got Mike. So we talked about Washington. We talked about Philadelphia. What are some of these games that you really want to take a look at for this weekend coming up? Are there any game that if you could only pick one to be tuned into that you'd be watching? Not so much for your own personal fantasy reasons, but ones that you think are just going to be a huge game fantasy-wise in general.
Oh, you're talking about out of the Friday or the Saturday games?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Vikings and Saints on Friday night or Friday Christmas Day football, because the Saints, Drew Brees, another week getting healthier. Obviously, got Alvin Kamara, and I think that on the Vikings side of things, I mean that offense with Cook, Thielen, and Jefferson is definitely efficient and is definitely competent. And I think that the Vikings don't have that good of a defense as we've seen. So I think that's going to be great for your Saints players. And then turn that's going to force the Vikings to keep the foot on the gas pedal and keep having to throw the ball. So I think that could be a pretty good fantasy game in general.
All right, and we got another question from Zach. Gage or Ingram, full PPR, pick one, and don't worry about too many questions. We appreciate it. That's what we're here for. Any question you got, we will answer them. That's 50 questions for all we care.
For sure. Yeah, and it's good that the Giants and the Falcons both play at once, so you can make this decision easier. But it's simple. If Julio Jones is out, you go with Russell Gage. If Julio Jones plays, you go with newly named Pro Bowl tight end Evan Ingram, which I don't understand that, but
Well, what tight ends would you put ahead of him?
in the NFC,
Yeah.
actually, you know what? I think that's a good question, K-Mac. You're right.
The
'Cause
tight end position is
You're
so
right.
top
You're
heavy
right.
this
No, you're
year.
right. Because I'm thinking in general, like fantasy. I'm like, oh, easy. You know, you go with Kelsey, but Kelsey and Waller in the AFC. So I think the only guy in the NFC you put over him at this point would be T.J. Hawkinson.
And he is the starter.
Well, yeah, it's no surprise. So, yeah, I mean, maybe you could consider Logan Thomas. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, but let's talk about TJ Hawkinson for a minute. I've been high on him all year. He had a disappointing game this last week, and I just gotta ask, what is going on with this Detroit Lions offense? Who can you trust, and who do you like going forward for this week?
Well, I mean, I think you have to go with Hawkinson because, like you said, you know, well, he's the third highest scoring tight end, and based on the landscape, you can't sit him. I mean, Marvin Jones Jr. had a good game, and he's been the eighth best fantasy wide receiver since Galladay went down. So I think you could trust Marvin Jones as long as Kenny Galladay's out. And then you trust DeAndre Swift. I mean, he balled out last week. But outside of those three, you can't trust anybody. I'm not trusting Matt Stafford. I've been burned too many times by him. They do have a good matchup against the Bucs secondary, but I still can't trust him. I think there's better streaming options available. So you got to just trust those three. Out of the three, I feel the most confident with DeAndre Swift. So yeah,
Had a
that's pretty much
touchdown
where I'm
game
at.
this last week. And Zach
that?
brings up a good point. Green Bay tight end, 10 touchdowns. Robert Tunyon.
Oh, Robert Tunyon.
He should
Yeah.
be in there over Evan Ingram.
That's right. Yeah, we had to sit tight and think about that. Yeah, he should be. I mean, Evan Ingram hasn't done much. I always thought he was overrated anyway. I mean, I don't understand that pick,
But fantasy doesn't account for blocking.
that's a good point. That's a good
very
point.
big job
That's
for the
another
tight
thing
end.
too. Like when you're like, let's say you're with your buddies and you're talking about who's the best receiver in football, like you have to separate like fantasy and real life because a lot of times, yes, the best receiver in football also are good in fantasy, but like fantasy too is a lot has to do with some touchdowns, and so that can inflate stats as well. So like the guy who's like the eighth best fantasy receiver may not be the eighth best NFL receiver when you're trying to debate that type of stuff. So
Yeah, and then also you want to talk about usage, receptions, like who does the most with their receptions versus who gets the most of them.
exactly.
And speaking of receptions, how about that Stephon Diggs, huh?
I think
Third
is
straight
the
weeks.
NFL leader in receptions.
Yeah, and third
Yeah,
straight
I mean,
weeks
dude,
with over 10 receptions. Like,
the guy's tearing it up, and he's obviously. I mean, honestly, there is the only like in terms of pure route running and getting separation, the only better receiver than Stephon Diggs at that is Devontae Adams, in my opinion, in just strictly getting separation and route running, because Stephon Diggs is dude. He's like an incredible route runner, man. It's crazy, and I think that's a big reason why the offense has had so much success. That being said, I'm saying from the beginning, Stephon, he's a diva. I don't like his attitude, and I think it's eventually going to cost him when things don't go their way. And there was a moment in the Bills-Chiefs game when they were losing to the Chiefs, and Diggs was just walking back, moping around when they were trying to go hurry up. Got a false start, called because of that, and you could just tell the body language was kind of off. So I think he's the new Antonio Brown, and you can come at me for that. I don't care. I'll eat my words if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm seeing. But when it comes to pure talent and when it comes to fantasy, I know I have Diggs in a league too. The guy is just incredible, and a lot of teams are gonna ride him to the championship.
Yeah, and he finally is in a position where he's happy. So in a position where he feels valued.
For now.
For now, yeah. It could be hard when you're in a system with Kirk Cousins and you never know what's going to come your way. I feel that Kirk Cousins, it's just hard to know whatever is going to come your way. He's just one of those guys that, is he good? Is he bad? Is he someone you can trust on week to week? And just imagine being the star wide receiver in that situation. Like, it's a position that in general is filled with huge egos, and deservedly so, because these are the guys scoring the touchdowns, like making the money. All the rules are built around them not getting hit. So he's just one of those guys who was put in a bad situation. Now he's in a good one. Yeah, he'll be happy for now, like you said, but time will tell. The Bills start losing, whether Diggs is going to be the kind of guy who's going to turn on his team or not. I've already seen he's done that in the past in Minnesota. But as of right now, he seems happy, seems to be in a good place with Buffalo. And, yeah, I did want to take a minute and talk about going back to that game against the San Francisco 49ers. I remember watching Richard Sherman on him the whole time, just watch him get, the route running for Stephon Diggs. The route running for Stephon Diggs, and just racking up those 10 receptions. Every time he'd run out, just move any direction on him, and catch the ball for a first down every single time against Richard Sherman, who was looking straight up tired out there. Yeah, he didn't let him get the big play, but he was just getting first down after first down, catch after catch, and there was honestly nothing he could do about it.
No.
And
but he's done that. But he's done that with. I mean, obviously Richard Sherman, but he's done that all year long with corners. Like even some of the better corners in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And just taking a moment, because I think partially because I have a couple of those Bills guys on my team, but just watching that offense, the way they're running right now, the route running of those receivers, like you look at Cole Beasley also, and even Gabriel Davis, the three of those, they are a well-oiled machine right now working with Josh Allen. And the way they move and the way that Josh Allen gets them the ball throughout the game, it's really impressive. And that Buffalo Bills offense is going places. And hopefully that means they're going to lose in the first round to the Miami Dolphins. I'm fine with that. That would make my day. But honestly, though, they're really good, and I just see them improving from here on out. And it will be a tough test this week going up against the New England Patriots defense. But I don't think it's going to be that tough of a test. I say you still start these guys. You start Josh Allen. You start Cole Beasley. And you start Stephon Diggs. And that's a shout-out to you, Buffalo Bud, if you're listening out there. Got some Bills talk in for you.
Yeah, Bud, we can talk, but I'm fine, man. I'll debate you. I'm cool with it, bro. I mean, I know you'll disagree with my take. That's fine. I'm willing to back it. And I am a little biased, too, because, like I said, I am a Dolphins fan.
Me too,
but
believe it or not.
But hopping off that what's that?
Me too, believe it or not.
Yeah, believe it or not. No, but dude, I'd be the same way. Like if I had guys on an offense that were like a huge reason why I'm having so much success this year in fantasy, like of course, like it'd be hard to hate them. Definitely, I don't blame you. But real quick, hopping off that, like this, if you're a Packers fan, you should listen up because you should look at what the Buffalo Bills have done. They brought in Josh Allen, right? And they saw his raw potential, and he had a lot of stuff to work on when he came in. And what did they do? They gave him the right system to succeed. They gave him the right weapons. They didn't give up on him. He did his part by putting in the work to get better. And that's the mark of a good GM and a good coach and a good organization. And they go places. Green Bay, they don't give Aaron Rodgers help. They draft a backup quarterback and then a third string plodding running back, A.J. Dillon, in the second round. Like,
imagine if they would have drafted like a Jalen Reagor or a Chase Claypool in that situation.
This wide receiver class is so deep, man. And I think honestly, that's one of the reasons why Aaron Rodgers is having a good year. I think he just has that screw you guys attitude, and I think that's why. Like you have to have in the NFL, man, coaching and the right structure and the right team building is crucial. Like, you look at what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. Like, obviously, Lamar's limited in what he can do. He's not a good pocket passer. So what did they do? Greg Roman, they tailor-made the offensive system around Lamar, and they created the offense to make him do what he's good at. and to make him comfortable. And we saw how successful that was last year. And now, as we're seeing down the stretch, now he's starting to look into that form this year. So obviously the talent of players, of course, and their work ethic, but the coaching staff and the way you build teams and bringing in the right pieces is so vital. And I think that's a big credit to the Bills coaching staff as well.
Yeah, I feel that Aaron Rodgers is just proving his greatness here by being able to do so much with so little. And I think you do have to give credit to Davante Adams because when he first came in, he was not the guy he is now. He definitely took a huge improvement over the years, and that definitely helps having Aaron Rodgers, possibly one of the best quarterbacks you've ever seen, throwing to him. But Davante Adams is not just a product of a good system. Like you said earlier, he is an excellent route runner. He's got great hands, great breakout speed. He's a guy that definitely is that number one receiver you need. But just with him, just with Aaron Jones, that isn't enough to carry an offense alone. Luckily, you do have Aaron Rodgers to help you do that. But, yeah, the Packers got to give him help if they want to keep him. Like, Aaron Rodgers, you could definitely sense his frustration from last year. This year, now that they're doing so much winning, I mean, you still see him. He is a guy who, like you said, he's got that screw you attitude. He's going to be the guy who, he's a winner. He knows it, and he wants to surround himself with winners. But that being said, we do have another question from Zach, who asks, y'all think Eckler has a breakout game this week?
Eckler can have a breakout game any week, honestly. Again, the only thing that's going to hold him back is the coaching staff and them playing Kalen Ballage, giving him 10 to 12 carries a game. So, yeah, I think Eckler can have a breakout week. In PPR league, I mean, he's got an incredible floor with all the amount of receptions that he's getting. His big knock is he's just can't find the end zone. And, again, that has a lot to do with how he's used when they get into the red zone. But, absolutely, he can have a breakout week against a bad Denver defense.
All right, and I'm going to give you a little room to rant here, too, because I know how you feel about the Chargers. And I know that you weren't able to make the show where we talked about the Chargers-Raiders game. But, man, those Chargers, for being such a talented team, and you look at the pieces that they have, you look at Austin Eckler, you look at those receivers between Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Justin Herbert on top of all that, they should be so much better than they are. But it just goes to show how a team can be so limited by the system that they have in place. And Anthony Lynn there, we were talking, he is a good guy, but his coaching system just does not work for that team. And I believe that is any head coach's dream to try to get that, or any head coach prospect's dream to try to get into next year. And I think with the right person in place, not only will that be a great team in real life, but those fantasy studs are going to go off if they got the right personnel coaching them and working with the right system. But here you go. I'm going to give you a few minutes to rant about the Chargers.
Well, I appreciate it. But along with what you just said there, K-Mac, though, that opening, assuming they can Anthony Lynn at the end of the year, that's going to be the most attractive open head coach opening in the NFL by far, like with all the reasons you just said. But
all right, just imagine now for a second. Just imagine Eric Bieniemy in that offense.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you right now, if you have any fantasy players on the Chargers or Chiefs when they play each other, you better start everybody in that game. Look, you mentioned Keenan Allen. Like when we're talking about wide receivers and you want to talk about good route runners, I mean Keenan Allen, him and Allen Robinson, in my opinion, are the two of the most underrated and underappreciated wide receivers in the NFL, and they're both hurt by their coaching staffs, in my opinion. And you don't hear much about them, obviously, because they're on bad teams and they have, well, not questionable quarterback play. Well, maybe Robinson a little bit, but besides the point. I mean, dude, how do you have Justin Herbert? First of all, okay?
First of all,
you're going through, I know it was a limited offseason, whatever, but still, you're seeing these guys every day in practice, right? How are you going to what do you see to not have Justin Herbert be your starting quarterback over Tyrod Taylor? Tyrod Taylor is a solid NFL quarterback, but he's not a guy that's going to put you over the top, and we've seen that before. He might get you 10, 11 wins with a good defense playing conservative. And then when unfortunate incident with Tyrod Taylor, and glad he's okay, they bring in Herbert, and then after the game against Kansas City, which Herbert played really well in, and they again had a chance to win that game, but that was bad coaching. The way they played in overtime, running the ball on first and second down, extremely conservative with Josh Kelly. And Anthony Lynn comes out and said, "Oh, he's a backup for a reason." Like, first of all, you got to give your young rookie confidence, and second of all, he's clearly this guy's clearly a superior talent to Tyrod Taylor. And then against the Raiders, I mentioned it before, he has one pass attempt in the fourth quarter. One. I don't understand that. I don't get how he can have one pass attempt in the fourth quarter, and then you have Kalen Ballage, who is not a good running back at all. You sign him, he gets released by the Jets. You sign him, and he's getting the goal line carries over Austin Eckler. He's first down. Literally, there was a stretch in that game where their first 5 possessions, or their first 5 first downs on 1st and 10, it was a run up the middle with Kalen Ballage. The play calling was way too predictable. And then we can't even get started on the bad clock management and how many close games the Chargers have lost over the last 3 to 4 years. I mean, they were playing against the Bills. There was 20 seconds to go, right? And they had no timeouts. They were on like the 5-yard line, and they run the ball. I mean, I don't understand that whatsoever. Again, Anthony Lynn's a great guy, but you can seriously see how this coaching staff is holding this team back with all that talent they have. And not only on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defensive side as well. And then real quick, you look at, meanwhile, a sign of good coaching, like the Patriots have been all those years, or even Miami this year. Miami had three of their main offensive guys out for this game, and the game plan was amazing. You gash the Patriots on the ground, which is what they've been getting. They got gashed the previous week against the Rams. What the coaching staff did was they saw that, they adjusted the game plan, and then they gave Salvon Ahmed 16 carries, over 100 yards. Miami, I think, had over 250 rushing yards in that game. I mean, that's a sign of good coaching. You saw all those years with the Patriots. They didn't have the most talented group of guys on offense at times when they didn't have Wes Welker, Randy Moss. I mean, they had guys like Rashae Caldwell and Chris Hogan, people like that, and they still won 11, 12 games because it's the coaching staff. So, yeah, the Chargers, and I know Chargers fans, I listen to this guy on YouTube. He's a Chargers fan, and I know he feels a lot more strongly since he's an actual fan. It's time to get a new coach, new system, and honestly, with the personnel that you have, with Austin Eckler, the way he catches the ball, it's time to run a Kansas City Chiefs style, Buffalo Bills style offense where this has to be a pass first spread offense, in my opinion.
All right, so we just have a few minutes left, which means it is time for Breakout Player of the Week. We got 3 games that we are taking into account too for this one. That is, or 3, 4 games. I don't know. I'm losing track. But we're talking about the Saturday games, and we're talking about the Christmas Day matchup between the Vikings and the Saints. What we're going to do is we're going to go off of ESPN's PPR projections, and we're each going to choose a player that we choose to beat those projections. So a player to go that much higher than what they're projected to do. Last week, the winner was Bobby with his prediction of Jalen Hurts, and he was far and away the winner with that one because Hurts had a tremendous game. So, Bobby, why don't you start us off? Who is your pick for this week's Breakout Player of the Week?
Well, I was going to pick Justin Jefferson, but Bud picked him, but that's okay. I mean, me and him both have him in some of our leagues this week, so we need him to go big. So now he's kind of putting me on the spot here, but
all right. So there you go. Bud picked Justin Jefferson.
Yeah. Why don't you go first, K-Mac?
Well, I mean, you won far away last week,
but
maybe I'll pick your backup guy.
I'm giving you my permission though.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
All
Let's
right.
hear it.
So my player, I am going to go with a New Orleans Saint, and I'm going Manny Sanders. I think that he is going up against a questionable Viking secondary. He is going to be the guy. Traquan Smith is questionable for the game. Drew Brees has got to throw somewhere with Michael Thomas out, and I do like Manny Sanders in this matchup against the Vikings. Now, who do you have?
Nice. Yeah, definitely caught off guard because I had Jefferson the whole way.
Oh, so you wanted me to fill for time? I can fill for a little more time. I can fill for a little more time and talk about how Taysom Hill is my backup breakout player of the game because he keeps stealing Alvin Kamara's touchdowns. I'm not mad, though.
Dude, he still got a touchdown, though. And honestly, unpopular opinion here, we'll just leave it at that. Alvin Kamara is not a very good running back between the tackles, and I think that's why they have him.
He had not had a 100-yard game this entire season.
No, yeah, right.
Think
100-yard
about
rushing
that.
game. I think
Alvin Kamara has not had a 100-yard rushing game this
look,
entire year.
Sean Payton's a good coach, and Alvin Kamara obviously is incredible running back. But when it comes to straight like a between the tackles type runner, I think that's the reason why they have Latavius Murray taking some of those carries. And I don't think he's that good of an in between the tackles runner, honestly. But that doesn't mean he's a bad player. I just don't think in that role it's one of his strengths. But
Yeah, but he has that breakout speed. He is
absolutely.
The best
Oh yeah, dude.
pass catching running back in the NFL, and I don't think it's close. And
well, I mean, it's close with like McCaffrey, or you could even argue Austin Eckler. Not, I think Kamara. I agree with you, but I don't think it's by far. But that's just my opinion.
Okay, but you're entitled to your opinion. I trust you.
Hey man, for sure. I love Kamara. So hold on, real quick, before I do the breakout player, and to stall more time, is there anything that you have to rant about? You want to rant about Taysom Hill? You want to rant about anything else, whether it's fantasy wise or in general, like a team?
I just want to take this moment, since I have the time right here to talk about it. New England Patriots, your era is done. Losing to Tua Tagovailoa and his 2 rushing touchdowns against the rookie QB killer Bill Belichick, who is nothing without Tom Brady. I said it. New England Patriots are done. Cam Newton is done. And that just makes me happy.
I think that's because we have Bud, who's a Bills fan, and we have John, who's a Jets fan. I think that's one thing we can all agree upon.
All right. So, you got that breakout player yet?
Yeah, I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to go with DeAndre Hopkins.
All right.
With Murray healthy, I mean, the guy's one of the best in the NFL and best wide receivers in football. And he always comes out big in playoff time. I had him a few years ago in the playoffs. He really helped me out. He's a stud. So I'll take Hopkins. I'll play it safe.
All right. That being said, I think that about wraps it up for the day. I think we got a lot in. I want to thank all of you for listening in. Thanks for watching on Facebook, Twitch, Spotify. We're basically everywhere now. So follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Just hit us up on all these platforms. This is our first year, and we have had a blast doing it. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is championship week. We are going to be live for the next week as well. And we'll probably put a wrap-up show once the regular season is ended, talk about the playoffs a little bit, and just talk about the season as a whole. Like, this has been a crazy year, not only with COVID in the mix, but just as far as fantasy football goes, this has been one of the more interesting ones. I know thanks to this show and the work that I've been putting in this show and the research I've been doing, I am in the championship in every single one of my leagues for the first time ever, and I am by far probably... I don't want to say not the most fantasy intelligent, but I know the amount of work and research that these other guys, Bobby included, have put into fantasy football. I just absorb off of them, and I'm here to just pass it around and answer questions. But I've done so much research, learned so much fantasy just by listening to these guys on this show and for all the stuff that putting in. So I appreciate that, and I am going to use that against you, Bobby. For those of you listening, I am facing off against Bobby for the 3rd year in a row in our 12-year, or our 12-team. Actually, it's been going on about 12 years also. PPR Money League that we've been going for a long time. And to meet you for the 3rd year in a row in the championship, in the Digital Bowl, as we call it, I'm excited to play you. And may the best man win.
Yeah, man, I think it's going to be a good one. And real quick, too, just want to say something real quick. Like, when it comes to, like, doing research and all that stuff, like, look, in the end, man, like, it's basically what you're trying to do is predict the future. And a lot of things are just so impossible to predict. So, like, if you made it, like, let's say you started Devontae Adams last week, and then, like, you had someone on your bench, like, I don't know, maybe you had Corey Davis as, your 4th wide receiver on your bench who went off, and that would have won you the week. And then you're saying, oh, I should have started Corey Davis. Like, no, because you can't predict the future. So you can't go crazy. You do your research. You do what you can. You listen to the Last Minute Fantasy Scramble boys, who most likely will make the right decision. But in the small event that we don't predict the future correctly, then you can't beat yourself up over it because it's almost impossible to predict. And so, yeah, K-Mac, it's gonna be exciting, man. Good luck. May the best man win. Yeah, that's it. That's what we got for today.
Yeah, and just taking that moment to repeat what Bobby said. Yeah, we can't predict the future. Nobody can. None of these fantasy experts who are going to tell you this is our lock, this is who it's going to be. We don't know. Really, at the end of the game, there is so much luck that goes into it. But what we do is we put in the research, we put in the time to try to get you in the best situation to win. And it's not totally gambling. It's not totally luck at the end of the day. And what we try to do is put you in the best situation to have the best probabilities of winning. And at the end of the day, people will talk about like, oh, they knew that Cam Akers wasn't going to go off. They knew that Keenan Allen wasn't going to go off. But you really don't. And when you got to set yourself up in that situation to win, you can't look back. And when you go off of a play that every statistic proves for that to be the right play, you got to go with it. You got to stick to it. And if an injury happens, it's not your fault. If they decide to completely change up their game plan from everything that they've been doing, there's no way that you could know that. And really, it all just comes down to putting yourself in the best situation to win. That being said, there's my rant. Alongside Bobby, Digital, Janice, I'm Kevin K-Mac McCartney. And we will see you on Sunday where we prepare you for Football Sunday Championship weekend. It is a big one, Week 16. We will see you there live at 11:30.